for us, it's even up to the CEO who says, look, I love learning. He has German sayings because he's a German. He says, Wissen ist Macht und Macht macht Spaß. So essentially translating, knowledge is might, and you might as well have fun. Right?
Welcome everybody, I'm Richard Parfitt, the Marketing Manager here at iVentive. I am very pleased to be joined today by Kalus Scheile. Klaus is the VP of Global Learning and Development at T-Systems. Klaus has over 15 years of experience in telecommunications, engineering, and technology. He describes himself as leading the design of a self-learning organization with a team that is crazy about learning experiences. His role covers everything from reskilling and career development to talent acquisition, and his digitized program launched in 2022 has delivered already thousands of future skills for T-Systems. And that topic of skills is clearly very close to Klaus's heart. He spoke at our recent event in Cologne on the skills journey that he and his team have been on and the lessons learned so far, and we're going to delve into some of those topics today. So Klaus, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Richard. Hi.
We're really grateful that you made the time to speak to us. And I spoke in that little introduction about the skills topic that is really on a lot of people's minds for a lot of learning teams at the moment. So I wanted really just to start with a sort of broad question about that, but we talked about the skills journey that you've been on at T-Systems. Could you maybe just tell us a little about that and where you guys are at the moment?
Yes. So, I mean, on the one hand, right, if you think about it, it's not where you're coming from, it's not your origin, it's not your parents' job that define your career in the future. It's actually the skills, right? The skills you have now, that's your current job, and the skills that you have in the future, that's your future job. And at the system, so this is something that we put front and center of everything that we do, because especially we also realized we're now in a different time, right? We're in a different situation. It's actually skills are limited. There's a complete scarcity of skills on the market, and we face this challenge too. So we realized we need to be much better in how we plan the future of our colleagues. And this was then the center of the decision to take, okay, let's centralize learning and development, put it sort of say more on stage or more on the table, and give it the task to first have a look at what are the future skills, what are the skills that we'll be needing 3 years down the road, right? And then actually make sure that we get there. Now, this was 2022 when we started, and we said by the end of 2024, so by the end of this year, we want to have 10,000 of those future skills, but have them certified, right? So it's not any skill, it's not any, it's not gardening 2.0 or something, it's Docker, Kubernetes, so real tech skills, AI, but we want to have them certified. And I think right now, in a nutshell, where I looked up this morning, so we're 9,644. So I think in the next few days, weeks, we'll actually break the barrier and have achieved, sort of say, our goal 7 months early.
Oh wow, fantastic! Well, congratulations in advance on that. Maybe by the time this video is actually published, you may have crossed that line. So that's really exciting. I'm really interested in that certification part of it, because a lot of the skills conversations that we hear are around the sort of issues of people self-reporting on their skills and either over-reporting or under-reporting their level of proficiency in certain areas. And we talk about skills-based organizations and so on. So how important is that certification part of it for you?
Yeah, it's a huge discussion with us, but I think it's super important for 3 reasons. I mean, the first reason is the certificate actually shows that you understood what you learned beforehand, right? So we realized we have kind of a funnel, and we realized about the people who participate in the training, about 1/3 only manage a certificate on average, right? There's several reasons to it, but there clearly is a knowledge gap that you need to learn. You need to cram in the hours to actually get the certificate, especially on the more advanced certificates. But I also believe, second, that you owe it to yourself, right? It's up to you. You invest the time to learn something. And if you get the certificate, you actually build so to say, your resume for yourself, right? And then last, it's also for us, it's a requirement. I mean, we have many partners who actually look at how well we're certified, right? How many Google digital leaders do we have? How many Microsoft Azure leaders do we have? And all these certificates, they actually underline the picture. And this is why for us it's important. And so where we are now, where we started is that we actually have certificate inventories, so to say, or skill inventories for all of our colleagues globally. There's 27,000 colleagues that are in the system. And we know for every skill exactly where they are. And every training, every certificate automatically ties into that.
Well, I mean, that must be really empowering for you as a learning team to have that level of data as well, to really know, to be able to see the impact.
It's absolutely overwhelming. Yes,
Yeah,
it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. It's one of the challenges we face, to be honest, right? Because we have complete transparency on what we got. But, if you think about it, you have 27,000 employees, each with 27 skills on average, right? On different maturity levels. There's a lot of skills, right? And making sense out of that amount of data, that is quite a challenge. And that is one of the things we're currently thinking about, right? There's lots of reports, especially if you look forward, like 3 years from now, out of all of the data that we have, what will we still need? So this is a planning challenge that we're still trying to solve.
And you must be having to do a lot of upskilling yourselves as a learning team to be able to cope with the data analysis side of it.
Exactly. But we're good at it by now. This is also the interesting part, which I love about the team. They actually take their learning serious. So they also go do deep dives and actually are certified, for example, as Google digital leaders. Things like this. It's very nice.
Oh, fantastic! And I mean, I know you were sharing a lot of this journey with the group in Cologne, and hearing about some of the other experiences there as well, and the events under Chatham House rules and all that kind of thing. So I won't ask you for specific examples, but were there particular surprises or particular insights that you took away from those conversations, from the reflections of other learning leaders who were looking at your work?
Yes. So first, actually, thanks again. Right, it was a fantastic event. I loved it. And I think for me, the most interesting insight was the importance of reskilling. Right, saying essentially, look, with the changes and the impact that AI has on especially white collar workers, this brings a huge change. I mean, it's on the one hand, right, a lot of opportunity that we have with AI, but on the other hand, a lot of risk that brings on additional demand on reskilling and additional demand, so to say, on the proficiency of reskilling in the L&D teams. I'm very curious about. So this was seeing that every single one of us was thinking about how can we do it and how big will the impact actually be, and trying to assess what will be affected, what will be the future skills from that perspective. That was interesting.
Yeah, it sounds really, really exciting, and we hear so many different L&D teams, like I say, talking about this topic of skills, and like you say, that with AI and new technologies, there's so much disruption and so much responsibility on organizations to try and manage the change. But it seems like you at T-Systems put a lot of emphasis on individual responsibility around this as well. You talk about being a self-learning organization. We read about, I was reading on your website about planning and structuring your development goals, planning your career. So is that a really important part of the ethos for you guys, for personal responsibility, for a personalized learning experience?
Yes, I think, for me, I mean, you have to make it personal because every individual has to prioritize it by himself or by herself. Right? It's like saying we want to be fit, we want to go to the gym, but then it's each individual's decision how much they prioritize that and how much time they spend on it. And this is not something we can top down somehow, force upon the team. What we can do and what we want is to stress and to empower the team to actually be able to take these decisions themselves, to have a feeling, how much can I learn, right? What are the borders? And so what we try to do is educate them that essentially there are no borders, right? Most of the systems actually now as an employee, you have two managers. You have one manager with which you work on the factual, on the topics, right, on the project. But there's another manager who's essentially only taking care about your personal development, right? So just to emphasize, just a few of the small things to emphasize how important it is for us to learn. And the cool thing is we see it in the numbers. So learning time, for example, at T-Systems doubled over the last 2 years.
And it's that I mean, that's an incredible uptick, right? To have that big of an impact. And so is that something you've had a lot of input from the leadership on, a lot of support from the senior leaders at your organization to do? Has that been a big part of it?
Yes, and I think that's the only way you can do it. So that's my lesson learned. You really have to have the senior management completely behind it, right? For us, it's even up to the CEO who says, "Look, I love learning." He has German sayings because he's a German. He says, "Wissen ist Macht und Macht macht Spaß." Yeah, so essentially translating, knowledge is might, and you might as well have fun, right? So this is kind of like a loose translation. So we really have to full support that, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, and being a technology-driven company, is that it must be something really ingrained in the culture of the organization as well, or at least I guess it should be.
Yes, exactly. But maybe also coming back to the previous question, just to give an example that's more practical, right? So for example, every year we have an award. It's called Learning Hero Award. So we select in different categories out of everybody globally, like the top learners, right? And then there's a ceremony once a year with the CHRO, with the CEO, right, where they personally congratulate those people and so to say, put them on a pedestal and make a hero out of them, so to say, just to celebrate and say, look, these are the role models, right? This is what we appreciate in the company. And not only with a handshake, right? So they get like MacBook Pros and things like this too. So it's really a real appreciation.
Oh, that's fantastic. And yeah, again, it touches on themes that we hear quite regularly about incorporating learning into the performance management side of things, so that leaders are measured on the learning impact that they have on their teams, and individuals are measured on the learning that they do. So it sounds like you guys have really run with that and made a lot of it. So just building on that, I mean, again, we talk about skills and skills-based organizations, and is that a phrase that you're applying a lot? The whole skills-based organization piece has that been a driving force behind it, or is it sort of getting away from buzzwords from your side of things?
Yes, so I think the skill-based organization is kind of the foundation for everything that we do at the moment. Right. So we also, because we were looking, how can we connect? I mean, learning is one thing, right? But how can we connect that to skill mobility, to talent mobility? How can we connect it to recruiting, for example? Or how can we connect it to our talent database? And the only way that we found is actually to connect it via skills, right? And having this transparency, and it's actually connected to the recruiting. It's actually connected to, look, which talents do we have in engineering? Right? That allows us to have a lot of flexibility in how we stuff positions, how we stuff also the talents at the company. So as such, it's a big basis.
Right. Okay. And do you see that coming through in sort of retention and recruitment data as well, that the learning emphasis is having a positive impact on those areas?
We have amazing. Let me give you just one an anecdote. So when we started 2 years ago, we were really struggling to find people on job adverts, right? So we put out a job advert, and then maybe, I don't know, 3 people would apply, 4 people would apply, but not many, right? And at that time, we were really doing good on reskilling, and we were thinking, okay, how about we offer right skilling? So essentially, saying, look, here's the position. No matter what you learn, if you're a chemist, a mathematist, doesn't matter. We will skill you and train you for that job, hoping we would get a few more applications, right? And at that time, the team were asking, okay, but where do we cut off, right? What do we do if we only have 1 applicant? What do we do if we only have 5 participants? And we said, okay, let's have a cutoff at 10 people. That's like the minimum we would expect. Now, in the end, what happened is that we put it out, we did some social media campaigns on it, and we aimed specifically at graduates, right? And for the graduate program, we had something like 4,000 applications, right?
Wow.
So we were completely blown away. And what happened, what they later told us was that it was not so much the job description that got us, but actually the thinking that we understood that you want to sort of say invest in us, get us right for the job, but even then that you're a company that actually invests in people and invests in learning, and that was the trigger. And
Right.
this is amazing.
Yeah, it's an incredible increase. I mean, the stats you're throwing out in this conversation are blowing me away. It's amazing, and it shows as well. We talk about how do we get people. We talk about how do we get people to learn. How do we get people to spend time learning? Clearly, from that, you don't need to get them to learn. They want to be learning. It's a vital piece of the puzzle for them, by the sounds of it.
Exactly. I mean, it's still not everything rosy, right? So we still face the challenges that you have this constant trade-off of, do I actually allow my people, do I have focus my people on the business side, right? And on the delivery, because we directly work for our clients, or, do I allow her to actually go on learning? So that's a constant trade-off. There's a constant fight that we're trying to balance out, right? But otherwise, you're completely right. It's the organization wants to learn.
Yeah, amazing. So, and from your personal point of view, you obviously have to lead by example on this as well. So I'm curious about what are the skills that you're trying to add to your portfolio, or that you have been adding to your portfolio over the last couple of years.
Yes. So I mean, on one hand, I come from engineering, right? So I still want to learn more about the cloud. So I get my hyperscaler certificates. I also learn on AI. So I did our recent AI pioneer program, as a matter of fact. And the last thing is I love to learn languages, right? So that's the other topic. I'm currently learning a language and just loving.
Okay, which language?
It's Russian. So my wife is from Russia. Yes, and I was thinking I better much be speaking her language. I kind of owe it to her. So I'm learning Russian.
Oh, fantastic! Well, walking the walk there, as well as talking the talk, and talking the talk in different languages as well. And again, coming back to what I was asking you about the lessons that you took away from talking about this with your fellow learning leaders in Cologne. And this is a slightly self-serving question on our behalf, but how important is it that senior learning leaders like yourself come together and share ideas and bring those different experiences? How important is it to be discussing more widely in the learning space how we go about building a function? And
I love it. No, I have to say I love it. This is the one of the best events, really, for the simple reason that you actually meet and talk. So the focus is more on networking, right? And you realize that within L&D you can actually share anything, right? There's more or less no company secrets. It's not like you're sharing the next 5G design or something like this. It's really about what are the challenges that you're facing, and they're agnostic, right? And how do you solve them? And for that, it's incredibly valuable to see someone who has maybe solved a problem that I am having now for herself, right? And can just give me the recipe. Let me give you an example. So at the last event, I was thinking about reskilling again. And I was thinking about, it was just putting it in the room. And then a colleague was saying, look, actually, we already solved it. There's a new law that just came out in Germany, 1st of April. It really just came out, that actually allows you to reclaim up to 70% of the salaries of the people affected by reskilling, right? And get them back from the government, from the state. And look, here's how I did it. Here's the contact person, and here's how you can do it. And here's all the rules and the regulations, and this is my assessment of it. Just like this, right? I would have asked the legal team, can you please assess it? I would have asked the procurement team, how do you do it? And and for this, for me, it's perfect.
Yeah, and those are the kind of examples we love, right? That people come together, they realize they have the same challenges. I always like to say at the start when I'm hosting our events that there's always someone in the room that can help you with your challenges, and there's always someone in the room that you can help with their challenges. And that's such a wonderful example. of that. So I know we're coming up to the end of the time that we had you booked in for, so I won't keep you much longer. But maybe just before we finish, could I ask what would your advice be to someone who's at nearer the start of this journey than perhaps you are, who's just getting started with skills? What would be your advice about the key elements they need to have in place?
All right. So I think there's two elements to it. The first would be have a team that is crazy about learning, right? That has the energy, that has learning as their passion, because that will propel you forward. But then second, start at the top, right? Have a workshop with the board of management that you have, right? And try to develop with them where you want to be 3 years from now. And this will then be a strong foundation because it gives you direction, but it also gives you, so to say, the power to execute with a team that wants to do exactly that. And also I can say, good luck, right? It will be a tough journey sometimes and you will be tiring, but in the end, I think it's also a rewarding journey. This is what you will get back from the colleagues, from the employees who actually then get upskilled, they get to learn something new, maybe even start in a new job area that you didn't have before, that they didn't think about before, right? And have a new career that they're facing. And this is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, and you talk about how rewarding it is, and the stats you've shared just show how much of an impact that can have on the amount of time people are spending upskilling themselves, the impact then on the employer brand, and the recruitment examples that you were sharing. So there's some real tangible impacts, and that's often the bit that learning leaders struggles with the most, isn't it? That finding that the real tangible business impact that they can demonstrate. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing those examples. We're really grateful to you for joining us in Cologne and for giving us your time today. And I'm sure there's a lot from what you've said in this conversation that others will take away and be able to apply in their organisations. So Klaus, thank you so much for joining us. Really grateful.
Thank you so much, Richard. It was a pleasure.